Hello, everyone. We are going to get started in about 3 minutes. Thank you. Hello. Thank you so much for showing up today for my book launch with LSU Press. I want to thank my editors and everyone at LSU Press for supporting me today and through the whole process of writing and revising and producing my first book, which you can see right over my shoulder. I also brought my copy because I'm going to read a very short, piece from the book. My name is Wendy Gaudin, and I am the author of Sunset Limited, an autobiography of Creole. And I am a history professor and assistant professor of history at Xavier University of Louisiana. I am sitting here today in the Center for the Advancement of Teaching, and I have taught here at Xavier for over 20 years. So I've been here for quite a while. And I also want to thank the staff here at the Center for the Advancement of Teaching for helping to get me all set up in the studio here and for supporting my writing as well as my teaching practice. I wanted to share with everyone some background, some history about the book, about the title, the cover of the book, and a little bit of background about the research process before I read a short piece. So if you are a Creole from Louisiana, or if you are a Creole in California, or if you live in Southern California and you are not Creole at all, and the same goes if you are living in Louisiana, you may have heard of the Sunset Limited train line. It is a southern line of the Southern Pacific Railroad, and it links the city of New Orleans with the city of Los Angeles. And when I was beginning my research into Creole history and the linkage between Creoles in Louisiana and Creoles in Los Angeles, I heard many, many people's stories about the Sunset Limited train. Many of the folks that I interviewed shared with me, oh, my family arrived in Los Angeles on the Sunset Limited. Or people in New Orleans would say to me, well, so many members of my family left here on the Sunset Limited. And I heard about this train in many of the oral histories that I conducted in Los Angeles, but especially throughout Southeast Louisiana. And so the Sunset Limited train has been in my consciousness, has been in my mind for uh, a couple of decades, if not longer. And I will also say that I heard about the Sunset Limited train from my grandparents, my Gaudin grandparents, who were a big part of my childhood, my life in Los Angeles. And lastly, my mother shared with me stories about the Sunset Limited based on her father's experience as a Pullman porter. Many of us have grandfathers or great grandfathers or uncles who were porters on the Sunset Limited or on the Southern Pacific Railroad, and perhaps they worked for the Pullman Company. And so they were known as Pullman porters. And so my grandfather, my maternal grandfather, whose name was Augustus Lawrence Burns, he worked as a Pullman porter. And this is a source of love and a source of pride in my mother's life and in my mother's stories about her father and her family's migration to California. So that is some of the history and some of the background to explain the main title of the book. And the subtitle, An Autobiography of Creole, is really an opportunity for me to explore different elements of the Creole population, Creole families, Creole as a sense of ethnic or cultural identity, Creole as a population with a very specific history and a geography. And so I sort of envision this book as a kind of collective life story. And it particularly focuses on those of us whose families migrated to California from Louisiana, or those of us who knew about the migration, we may have been shaped by that migration. Um, and so we would understand what the Sunset Limited represented. Sunset Limited is a multi-genre book. It is not a strictly academic historical text. It is not strictly creative writing. It is a blend of many things, as Creoles are also a blend of many things. So, as an historian, I'm a trained historian. I have a PhD in history. The book is its foundations are in historical research. That includes archival research. It includes census data. It includes records from the Catholic Church, as well as oral interviews. But it also pulls in other forms of literature. And so some of Sunset Limited is creative nonfiction. Some of the book is poetry. Some of the book is fabulation, and fabulation that is based on history and based on um, other kinds of stories that have been published. There's a little bit of literary criticism in the book. There's some geographic exploration in the book. And so it is really a multi-genre study. And I also would call it an autoethnography, which is an exploration of Creole, the community, the population, through my own experience as a Creole and as a person who studies race and studies particularly those of mixed heritage. I really enjoyed the research process that brought me into archives, that brought me into courthouse records, that brought me into libraries, but especially the part of the research that I really benefited from would be what some would call um, backyard archives or kitchen table archives or living room libraries. That is the time that I was able to spend with my elders and my grandparents' elders and elders in the community who shared their life stories with me, elders who shared with me photographs, their gigantic photo albums that they flipped through and shared images of their grandparents and their family members as a way to welcome me into not only their family story, but also into a shared and collective Creole experience. And I will say that one of the things that I engage in the book is a kind of inquiry into my own experience as a Creole. And that experience was shaped primarily by uh, California and my family's existence in Southern California, in Los Angeles, and in part in the San Fernando Valley. And that experience is an experience of diaspora. So when my family, along with many others, migrated west, they brought things with them. They brought artifacts with them. They brought language and colloquialisms and nicknames and stories with them. They brought their Roman Catholic faith with them. And so they brought recipes, they brought clothing, artifacts. And so my experience growing up in Southern California as a Creole was quite different from the experience of those who were born and raised in Louisiana and who never left, who never migrated west. And so when I returned to Louisiana to conduct research and to find out what is Creole history all about, um, what shaped my grandparents' childhoods and part of their adulthoods, um, what was left behind in Louisiana when my two sets of grandparents migrated. My mother's parents left Louisiana in 1930, and my father's parents left Louisiana in 1945. And then my parents met in the Creole Catholic community in Los Angeles. And one of the things that I discovered that I've written about in the book is that my Creoleness was quite different from that of the people that I met here. And in fact, on many occasions, I was told by people here in Louisiana, you know that you're not really Creole. You are, your parents may be Creole, your grandparents may be Creole, but you are not. You are a Californian, or they would say, well, you're just from Los Angeles, but your ancestors may be Creole. And at first, I felt a little shocked and surprised by that. And over time, I really learned the truth that I was being taught, that I was a product of a diaspora. And so my experience was different. And learning that difference is part of what brought me to write this book that I was asked to write by LSU Press. And so some of the exploration in the book is about that disconnected feeling of being Creole outside of the place where we originate and where Creole really means something, uh, and then returning to that and reflecting on my own experience. In that way, I feel that Sunset Limited and the Creole story can connect to so many other people's stories, so many others who are part of a diaspora, part of a collective migration in which people settle in their new home, settle in their new landscape, and try their best to build something that is new, but that is also deeply ingrained in what came before. People don't leave their home places and then suddenly become something new. They are still, who they were, and they bring culture, language, history, ways of worship, um, the cultures around food and eating and meals, and ceremony. They bring these things to new landscapes. But being in this new place means that there are going to be new influences and new self-definitions. And so the Creole diaspora may be unique in some ways, and in other ways, it speaks to other diasporas and other mass migrations as well. And so I hope that for those who are not Creole, maybe those who are interested in some California history or a history of the Deep South, or those who are interested in autoethnographies about Southern populations, those who study diaspora. I hope that the stories told in Sunset Limited will also speak to you. I was asked to read a very short piece from the book, and so I will do that. It is just almost 2 pages, not quite 2 pages, and I hope that's all right with everyone. I am going to read the beginning of a chapter that is called Topophilia. And the chapter is about Plaquemines Parish. And Plaquemines Parish is one of the southernmost parishes of coastal Louisiana. Plaquemines Parish is mostly, if not entirely, rural. And Plaquemines Parish is the place where Hurricane Katrina made landfall. And so if one were to travel to Plaquemines Parish today, one would see what I call later in this chapter, what I call tree houses. And that is homes and trailers that are built on these high pylons, so that if the landscape, when the landscape experiences flood again, people's houses are not inundated with floodwaters. And so traveling through Plaquemines Parish today is a really interesting experience You have to look up to see the homes, and some people's homes have exterior elevators. Some people's homes have these magnificent staircases that cross each other and meet in the middle and reach up into the trees. It's a really interesting experience to see how people in Plaquemines Parish survived and how they are remaking the human landscape in that part of Louisiana. So I'm going to read a very short piece that is, I guess, sort of an introduction to Plaquemines Parish, and it is called Topophilia. Lake of rains, plain of rains, sky of rains, sodden. This is flat land. This is uninterrupted horizon, all the clouds visible from start to stop, resembling Arabic script, the curled rise and the fancy puff and the long line. This is the savanna of swamp and slough. The concave places collect rain, and the convex areas are up in pine country. The levees engineered by free men and erected by those in chains. This is the exposed limb of Turtle Island, the curved edge of a massive stolen continent. This is the epitome of the global South, sun-darkened and silt-rich, ancient as bone, and born again just yesterday. Bought and sold, traded, bought and sold, perpetually giving to the global North until there's nothing left to give. Older than writing, wet with monsoons whose names are chanted like prayers, sung like dirges. Laura, Ida, Katrina. This land is a great trickster. Its moss is not really moss. Its grassy green fields obscuring water underneath. Its false river is really a lake. Its dead-looking cypress is not at all dead. Its Black Catholics and white slaves, its Homa, its Caddo, its Creoles, its Isleños. The Mississippi River's edge shifts with each wave of ecological disaster. The solid and steady place where you once stood, 10 years gone. The land is flat here, so the rain spills in every direction, boundless. Rain collects itself in any unwitting little crevice. Rain in ditches with summertime wild grasses. Rain in deer blinds. Rain in rabbit traps. In sugar cauldrons. In buckets inside the house. Rain on pelts hanging from tin can roofs. Rain on the nightshade. Rain in the ferry captain's hat, in the beds of rusted trucks, in the tackle. Rain in the bellies of trawlers and pirogues. Rain in sucked out crawfish heads and in the crawfish pot. Rain makes a labyrinth of this place. Funny that someone once thought they could impose a line here. Funny how the earth soaked their carpets, how the storms corroded their metals. Funny how the Mississippi River ran their boats away with biting shrimp and ancient gators, with tangled webs of grasses, with unfriendly banks, mighty breath, and surge. Funny how this land laughs at lines, this place where everything sinks and slants downward, where everything has the posture of an abandoned child. The room that was added to the back of the house is lower than all the others, and the floor in the kitchen slouches. The wooden planks nailed to the sides of houses begin on one plane and end on another, several centimeters lower. Roads crumble, sink, burp, gurgle, fill with water. Even tombs are sinking. The beloved ancestors who were entombed on the bottom are submerging. The names on their resting places, meeting the earth, and then disappearing. Lines transform into ringlets, waves turning starboard and port, diving deep and rising skyward. Here, we play directional symphonies and arrange ourselves in bends. Here, we make deities of our waters, delicacies of our sugarcane syrup, oracles of our mother's hair. These are the lowlands of the catastrophic storm. Thank you for listening to my introduction to Sunset Limited and to a brief reading from a latter chapter in the book called Topophilia. And now I am so happy to take your questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Our first question from the comment section is from Liz. The question is, why was California a migratory destination for the Creoles?
Thank you for your question. Creoles migrated to many places in the 19th century. Some migrated to France, some migrated to Saint-Domingue, the nation that became Haiti, some migrated to Mexico. And in the 20th century, we see migrations to Chicago, to Houston, some to New Jersey, some to the Bay Area, and then some to Los Angeles. And mostly these migrations were, they were caused by a couple of things. One would be people being sort of pushed out or feeling pushed out of Louisiana because of Jim Crow segregation, because of all of the elements that are involved in Jim Crow segregation, including disenfranchisement, people of color not being able to register to vote or to really participate in politics, unequal pay, racial violence, and exclusion in many different areas of life. So the search for social equality is one of the reasons why people migrated to many of these places, and including California. And another reason I would say would be opportunity that pulls people to California. So there are, push factors and then there are pull factors. And the many of the pull factors were economic. And so, for example, during World War II, right before World War II, but especially during and after World War II, around that era, there's a building boom in Los Angeles. And many of the men who migrated, the Creole men who migrated from Louisiana, were master craftsmen, like my other grandfather, who I also write about in the book, John Gaudin, who was also a deacon, a Catholic deacon. Many of our Creole elders were bricklayers, or painters or carpenters. And so being in the building trades meant that the building boom in Los Angeles was a great economic opportunity for them. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you so much. Our next question comes from Sharon asking, what does topophilia mean? Can you talk more about that word and sort of what it means to you?
Thank you for the question. So topos is land, and philia is love or affection. And so I titled this chapter, which was a personal essay that is now a chapter in the book. I titled it Topophilia because I really grew to love Plaquemines Parish. It holds a particular meaning for me and for Louisiana too. Plaquemines Parish is often forgotten when we talk about Hurricane Katrina. You know, the emphasis is usually on New Orleans, but so many places, including coastal Mississippi and coastal Alabama, so many places were negatively affected by Hurricane Katrina. And Plaquemines Parish is very, very low. And you can drive to the end of the road, and then what's in front of you is the Gulf, and there are islands and island communities on the coast. And so there's a feeling in Plaquemines Parish that's very different from New Orleans, very, very different. And so I titled the chapter Topophilia because there is a certain affection that I have for that part of the state.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Our next question is from Leslie. Question is, how did you feel leaving Los Angeles to make New Orleans your new home?
Well, I did not come directly to New Orleans. My own return migration was part of my education. So I attended undergraduate school at Cal State University, Northridge. I'm a proud Matador, and I have a bachelor's degree in history from Cal State Northridge. And so from there, I went to LSU and I earned my master's in history from LSU. So I lived in Baton Rouge, and then I went to NYU for my doctorate in history. And then I came to New Orleans to conduct research. And then I never left. Many people come to New Orleans without necessarily the intention of living here permanently or long term, and it just happens. So my migration to New Orleans was sort of a step-by-step process, and I write a little bit about that in the book as well. And I would say that I feel quite at home here in New Orleans, although there are many challenges. There are challenges to living everywhere. So I feel at home here, even though I really have a clear sense of how much the migration shaped my consciousness and my experience. And I don't conflate myself with folks here so much anymore. I really see that diaspora as a part of my identity. Thank you.
Our next question is, over the course of researching and writing the book, how did your feelings about family and belonging change?
Thank you for that question. That is a very deep question that I hope that I can address. I would say that part of me feels a sense of belonging here in Southern Louisiana. that sense of belonging is mostly um, connected to my ancestors. And knowing that my ancestors, my indigenous ancestors have been here for time immemorial. My African and European ancestors have been here since the 1700s. And so knowing that my ancestors were born here, lived here, worked here, loved each other, made families here, and died here. That means a lot to me, and that shapes my sense of belonging here. Um, I would say that I no longer really feel like I belong in Southern California, although of course I belong with my siblings, nieces and nephews and cousins, and my mother, who still lives in Los Angeles. And so the belonging in Southern California is mostly tied to people who are still a part of my life, a living part of my life, and the ways in which the San Fernando Valley shaped how I view the world. So I would say that my sense of belonging is wider and it's broader now that I live in the place where my ancestors lived and my grandparents left. And I'll just add a brief point to that, and that is that I write about this in the book that I am a Buddhist, and my Buddhist practice is mostly foundational here in New Orleans in the Vietnamese American population and in Vietnamese American temples. And so in that way, I have a different kind of belonging that springs from another source. I hope that answered your question.
Thank you. Our next question is from Corinne. What is the most important point you'd want people to take from your book?
Thank you for your question. The most important point that I would want someone to take from my book is that we are connected to the people who came before us. We are connected to our ancestors. And how we engage with that connection is entirely up to us. We can include those who may have committed wrongs, those ancestors who may have committed wrongs against other people, against other ancestors. Some of us choose not to include the harm doers among our ancestors. But I would say that we are a culmination of all of those experiences and those people, and how we choose to engage in them depends on our value system and our art making. And so as a writer and as an historian, this is my way of engaging with the people who came before me. And this is my way of understanding how I am a product of many, many generations of people who worked very hard to ensure the next generation's thriving and the next generation's fulfillment. And this is an act of gratitude, in my opinion. So I think that's the biggest thing that I would encourage those who are Creole or not Creole to engage with the text as an invitation to also engage with their own ancestry and their own history, and see what that brings out for you and how you want to express connection or gratitude or something like that in your own life.
Thank you. Next we have a fun question from Roz. Question is, what is your favorite Creole dish?
Oh gosh. Okay. So I would say my grandparents' gumbo, seafood gumbo, okra gumbo. I think that is my favorite Creole dish. I haven't eaten it in a very, very long time, since my grandparents are no longer here to cook it. But I associate that dish with family gatherings, family dinners around the dining room table. I associate that dish with watching my grandparents standing in the kitchen, preparing it. And I think that it's a perfect example of Creole food.
Thank you so much. In terms of future projects, what are you working on next? What are you thinking about? Are you going to do another book? What's on the horizon?
I hope very much to write um, another book. In fact, I have sort of um, a triptych or a trilogy in in mind. Trilogy sounds quite grand, but I do have two more ideas. But the next project is um, also it also engages in family history and and it really explores memory and family narratives and how family narratives are constructed out of what we remember, we remember, who we forget, um, who and what is sometimes deliberately erased from family histories and family narratives, and why that happens. And so that story will take me much more deeply into Los Angeles. Most of that story takes place in Los Angeles. And I will be conducting primary research um, very shortly this summer in Southern California. And I'm hoping that that book will make it into the world in a few years. Thank you for that question.
Thank you. We've got one more question from Leslie. Question is, what is the most personally impactful thing you discovered in your research?
Personally impactful, um, I think it's hard to identify one particular thing, but I will say that the first four chapters of the book deal with my four grandparents. Each chapter addresses each grandparent. And for the most part, these chapters reach back into the 17 and 1800s. And um, learning that I come from people who are of such diverse background. And I don't just mean racial or ethnic background. I mean nationalities, languages, class statuses, professions, so many different kinds of people who were active members of my family or people who chose not to be active members of the family for various reasons. Um, I think that that understanding that I and we, all of us are from such rich and beautiful backgrounds, that really helps me to see myself in a much broader way and a much wider way than perhaps I saw myself before I started writing and researching this book.
Thank you so much. Well, that is our last question, so we can go ahead and say thank you and goodbye to the audience.
Yes, thank you so much for attending and thank you for viewing this for those of you who take a look at the video later. I hope that you're happy with Sunset Limited, an autobiography of Creole. And I wanted to let everyone know that there is a link available in the chat if you'd like to purchase the book. And there's a promo code, yay, promo code for 40% off. That's wonderful. So if you would like to purchase the book, you can do it there, and yay, use that promo code. Thank you.